A good day to all of you. To continue with the poem, The Rime of Ancient Mariner, today we will talk about the poem in general. The Rime of Ancient Mariner, as I have told you, that it was published in Lyrical Ballads, collaboratively by Coleridge and William Wordsworth. And this collection heralded Romantic Age. So the poem The Rime of Ancient Mariner, it first appeared in Lyrical Ballads, and the title character detains one of the three young men on their way to a wedding feast and mesmerizes him with the story of his youthful experience at sea. How his slaughter of an albatross leads toward the death of his fellow sailors, his sufferings, and his eventual redemption. So, we have already discussed that the poem is a lyrical ballad. Ballad, you all know, is a narrative poem, and very intensely he has described his experience at sea, crime and punishment, penance and divine intervention, and then finally the poet tries to convey a message that one should be kind towards animals, and each and every insects, whether it's animals, so we should be very kind towards humanity and creatures. So if we talk about the character of the poem, the main characters are the ancient mariner, then the wedding guest, the sailors, another main character, the albatross, who is a innocent bird and who is supposed to be the messenger of God, and he is a sign of good luck. Then there is death and the nightmare life in death. So if we move the story, the first part is about the wedding guest, the voyage, how the voyage is struck in ice, and how he kills the albatross. So the poem is all about the ancient mariner. It's a description, or it's a narration of the story of a mariner, and how he detains three guests who are in a hurry to attend a wedding, and how he detains them, and he forcefully cast a spell on them to by making him here is listen his story. So how the first section is all about how mariner stops a wedding guest and how he forces him to listen to his story, how the ship sails south to equator. So on an ice-bound ship near the South Pole, the mariner and his crew are visited by an albatross. So this bird albatross, it was considered as a favorable omen. So the ship sails south to equator, and ship drives by storm into desolate Antarctica, and they stuck in ice. So how the ship breaks free of the ice and sails north, followed by the giant bird, and then inexplicably the mariner shoots and kills it. So an albatross suddenly appears through the fog like a messenger of hope. It is in the beginning, it is befriended by the shipmates. They all welcome this bird, and it is considered a sign of good luck. So it is befriended by the shipmates. They all welcome, they give him edible things, and they just enjoy his its company. The ice splits, south wind springs up and takes them northward. Then the passage. After some confusion, the shipmates they vilify him and hang the bird carcass around his neck. So mariner shoots albatross with his crossbow, and the ship becalmed in the Pacific. So the first section talks about the confusion the mariner shoots and kills it, and thereby bringing a curse upon the vessel. And after some confusion, his shipmates vilify him and hang the bird around his neck. So the passing of a ghost ship, uh, it precedes the death of all aboard ship except the narrator. So lost and alone, he marvels at a life affirming vision in the moonlight, and his prayer of reverence causes the albatross to fall into the sea. So, following his rescue, the mariner understands that his penance for his destructive act will be to wander the world, recounting his awful story. So, the second stanza, we can say the second part is about shipmates punish him for his crime. What do? They just uh, the crew get angry against his deed. They suffer from thirst but no water to drink. They hang dead bird around mariner's neck. uh, and here we have the most remarkable lines, famous line: day after day we stuck, nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ship. So so here we have second in the second part, it tells about the consequences of the killing of the albatross. The third part is all about a skeleton ship comes and the shipmates dies. So how a ship of skeleton appears with crew of two, death and life in death. The cast dies and life in death wins mariner. Suddenly, crewmates did drop down dead, one after another, with a silent course upon a mariner. So their souls fly away audibly, leaving behind dead and rotten bodies, laying with open eyes. So this is very horrible. So there are so many bodies. The all the sailors, they are lying dead, and they're with their open eyes, laying with open eyes. So which constantly stares at him. So, this is all about the consequences, the happening after the killing of that albatross. So, the fourth section, that how he is left alone for 7 days, he blesses the water snakes and then the spell is broken. So, the wedding guest is afraid that he is speaking to a ghost, but the mariner assures him that he didn't die. He is alone on the ship and tries to pray, but he cannot. He wanted to die, but he could not. For 7 days he looks at the dead man staring at him and cannot die. When he sees water snakes, he blesses them and he finds that he can pray. The albatross falls from his neck. So, if we move towards part fifth, then what happens in part fifth? It rains, and the ship is moved north. Crew rise. He sleeps, and then it rains. A roaring wind and storm comes, and the dread crew rises and manage the ship. The spirit from the snow and ice moves them to the equator again, and the ship stands still. Eventually, the mariner reaches home, but the curse remains with him in that he must wander even after land to land, seizing upon people and compelling them to hear his tale. So, this is the poem, that how mariner forces guests to listen his story. So, in the very first part, the three of the guests, they are going, they are in a hurry, they are to attend a ceremony, because the people, they are waiting for them, but mariner forces one guest to listen his story, and he cast a kind of spell, and he is spellbound. He listens his story. So how a storm hits the ship and impels in south, and how the ship got stuck in the ice. Suddenly then there is the coming of albatross, which is the messenger of hope. It is considered a good bird. It is considered as a we can say a good omen, and everybody hails the bird. They welcome it, they give it something to eat, they are very happy to have it. But the mariner, he kills albatross. And at first the other sailors, they are very furious with the mariner for killing the bird, which they believed a good omen and responsible for making the breezes below. But after the bird has been killed, the fog clears and the fair breeze continues, blowing the ship north into the Pacific, and the crew comes to believe that the bird was the source of the fog and the mist, so that the killing is justified. It's then that the wind ceases and the ship becomes trapped on a vast calm sea. So the sailors and the mariner becomes increasingly thirsty, and some sailors dream that an angered spirit has followed them from the pole. So in this terrible calm, trapped completely by the watery ocean, then they cannot drink. The man on the ship goes so thirsty and that they cannot even speak. So the shipmates punish mariner. So when the mariner sees what he believes is a ship approaching, he must bite his arm and drink his own blood so that he is able to alert the crew, who all grin out of joy. But the joy fades as the ghostly ship, which sails without wind, approaches. So the sailors, how they hangs albatross around the mariner's neck because they want to punish the mariner. So when after then the skeleton ship arrives, and on its deck, death and life and death gamble with dice for the lives of the sailors and the mariner. So it's most horrible scene. After life and death wins the soul of mariner, the sailors begin to die of thirst, falling to the deck one by one, and each staring at the mariner in reproach. So surrounded by the dead sailor and cursed continuously by their gaze, the mariner tries to turn his eyes to heaven to pray, but fails. So it's only in the moonlight, after enduring the horror of being the only one alive among the dead crew, that the mariner notices beautiful water snakes swimming beside the ship. So at this moment, he becomes inspired and has a spiritual realization that all of God's creatures are beautiful and must be treated with respect and reverence. So, with this realization, he is finally able to pray. And the moment he prays, albatross fell from his neck and sunk into the sea. So the mariner falls into a kind of stupor and then wakes to find the dead sailors' bodies reanimated by angels and at work on the ship. So, powered by the spirit from the South Pole, the ship races homeward, where the mariner sees a choir of angels leave the bodies of these sailors. So, after this angel's chorus, the mariner perceives a small boat on which the pilot's boy, and a hermit approach. As they get closer, the mariner's ship suddenly sinks, but he wakes to find himself in the pilot's boat. When the mariner speaks, the pilot and hermit are stunned by fear. So the hermit prays, the mariner in turn saves his own saviors and rows them to land, where he begs the hermit to grant him absolution for his sins. So the hermit crosses himself and asks the mariner, "What manner of man art thou?" The mariner then feels compelled to tell his story. So the mariner concludes his tale by explaining that as he travels from land to land, he is always plagued by that same compulsion to tell his tale, that he experiences a peculiar agony if he does not give in to his urge to share the story, so that he can tell just from looking at their faces which man must hear his tale. He ends with the explicit lesson that prayer is the greatest joy in life, and the best prayers come from love and reverence of all of God's creation. So, thus, he moves onward to find the next person who must hear his story, leaving the wedding guest a sadder and a wiser man. So, this is all about the poem Rime of Ancient Mariner. If we talk about the major theme of the poem is about the natural world. It's a realistic description of natural that helps in winning the reader's faith. And the poet gives us many natural imageries. The sun came upon the left, out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. So the natural world dwarfs and asserts its awesome power over man. How the natural world seems to be a character itself, which interacts with ancient mariner. Then we see killing of albatross is the action against nature which takes him and shipmates to thought of death. So first we have the description of natural world. Then there is also the spiritual world. It had popularly interpreted as an allegory of man's connection to spiritual and metaphysical world. So after attempts at prayer and realization of what he has done, his penance to forgiveness begins spiritually. I look to heaven and try to pray. Albatross here a mortal creature. The albatross, the bird, is a mortal creature and it is intimately tied to the spiritual world. So Mariner detects spirits several times in the poem. So we can find a kind of spirituality in the poem. Next, there is religion. It's a religious allegory conveying numerous themes pertaining to Christianity. It's a religious allegory carrying a religious theme that reflects Christians' belief. Albatross represents holy bird. Mariner fails to respect God's rules and so suffers by curse, which is similar to the religious stories of Adam and Eve. At the end, he kept alive to pass words of God's greatness on to others. There is also retribution. The poem is a tale of retribution. Throughout the poem, Mariner spends most of his role playing for his impulsive error, that is, the killing of albatross. Spiritual world avenges the albatross' death by curse on Mariner and shipmates. Even they are thirsty, their lips bake black in the sun. They must endure the torment of seeing water all around them, but still unable to drink it. So, retribution is blind. The sailors suffer with the mariner, though they themselves have not erred. Then there is a depiction of supernatural elements. We find the greatness of Coleridge's Mariner lies chiefly in the technique by which the supernatural has been made so believable and convincing that easily appeals to reader. This quality of making supernatural believe real is called willing suspension to disbelief. Her lips were red, her looks were free, her locks were yellow as gold, her skin was as white as leprosy. The nightmare life in death was she who thicks man's blood with cold. So such we can find this suggestive description of supernatural elements, and it is enough to enable reader to imagine for himself of life in death. So Coleridge depicts tactfully how nature punishes supernaturally for killing its innocent member. All in hot copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast did stand, no bigger than the moon. So, to grasp the dreadfulness of life in death, poet says, one after one, by the star-dogged moon, too quick for groan or shy, each turned his face with a ghastly pang and cursed me with his eye. So, this was all about the story Rime of Ancient Mariner. So, how he explains his tale as he travels from land to land, how he is always plagued by that same compulsion to tell his tale, and he feels a kind of agony if he does not give in to his urge to share the story. So the poem ends with the explicit lesson that prayer is the supreme joy in life, and one should be kind to all creatures created by God. So, how the mariner moves onward to find the next person who must hear his story, leaving the wedding guest a sadder and a wiser man. I hope you have got the poem. Thank you.